What happens when one of country music's biggest stars hits his limit on live TV? Today, we're looking at the shocking moment when Blake Shelton walked out of the Today with Jenna and Friends show, leaving millions of viewers shocked and the entertainment world talking. This isn't just a typical celebrity interview gone wrong. It's a powerful example of how quickly things can get out of hand when egos clash and boundaries are crossed. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment below because you won't believe how this whole situation played out. The morning started like any other on the Today with Jenna and Friends show. Blake Shelton walked into the studio with his usual smile, that easygoing Oklahoma charm that made him a household name. Jenna Bush Hager greeted him with her usual energy, and the cameras started rolling as they settled into what everyone expected to be a regular promotional interview for his new album. Jenna said, "It's so good to have you back on the show," her voice bright and welcoming as she adjusted her notes. "You look great, by the way. Country life is treating you well." Blake laughed and sat down. "Well, Jenna, you know me. I'm just a simple guy trying to make some music and enjoy life. Thanks for having me on again." The conversation started off smoothly, talking about his new music, his life off The Voice, and his relationship with Gwen Stefani. Blake seemed relaxed, telling jokes and sharing stories with his usual laid-back style. Things started to change when Jenna's co-host, who had been unusually quiet, decided to jump in. "Blake, I have to ask," the co-host said, leaning forward with a serious look. "There's been a lot of talk lately about your past comments on social media. Some people are saying you've been tone-deaf about certain social issues. How do you respond to critics who say you're out of touch with what's happening in America?" Blake's smile faded for just a second. He straightened up a bit, and those who knew him well would have noticed the subtle warning signs. His jaw tightened slightly, and his hands, which had been moving around, now rested firmly on the armrests. "Well," Blake began, his voice steady but with a bit of edge. "I think that's a pretty loaded question right off the bat. I've always been honest about who I am and where I come from, not trying to be something I'm not." Jenna sensed the tension and tried to bring the conversation back to something safer. "Blake, let's talk about your new single. The fans are really loving it, and the video's incredible." But the co-host wasn't done. "I think it's important that we address these things. Blake, you have a platform, you have influence, and some people feel like you haven't used that responsibly. What do you say to young fans who look up to you but feel let down by some of your positions?" Blake's eyes narrowed slightly, and his voice got sharper. "Look, I appreciate that you think this is important, but I came here to talk about my music, not to get ambushed about my personal beliefs. I've never claimed to be a politician or a social activist. I'm a country singer. But don't you think that with great success comes great responsibility?" The co-host pressed on, ignoring the growing tension. "Your voice matters to millions of people." "My voice matters when I'm singing," Blake shot back, his Oklahoma accent growing stronger as his irritation grew. "When I'm sitting in this chair, I'm here as an entertainer, not as someone's moral compass. And frankly, I don't appreciate being lectured about responsibility by someone who doesn't know the first thing about my life or what I stand for." Jenna jumped in quickly. "Blake, we're not trying to lecture you at all. We just want to have an honest conversation." "An honest conversation," Blake laughed, but there was no humor in it. "An honest conversation would have started with letting me know this was going to be some kind of trial instead of an interview about my music. An honest conversation would respect the fact that I'm here doing you a favor by promoting my album on your show." The co-host wouldn't back down. "I think our viewers deserve to know where their favorite celebrities stand on important issues. It's not about attacking you, Blake. It's about accountability." "Accountability." Blake's voice rose slightly. He leaned forward in his chair. "Accountability for what exactly? For being successful? For having opinions that might not line up perfectly with whatever narrative you're trying to push here. I've never hidden who I am or where I come from." The tension in the studio was now clear. Camera operators exchanged glances. Producers whispered urgently into their headsets, and Jenna looked increasingly desperate to regain control of the situation. The interview that was supposed to be a lighthearted promotion for Blake's new music had turned into something much more confrontational. "Blake," Jenna tried again, her voice taking on a pleading tone. "Maybe we can just take a step back here. We're all friends, right? Let's talk about something positive. Your tour is coming up, and I know fans are excited about that. But Blake wasn't ready to let it go. The damage had been done, and his frustration was now fully visible. You know what, Jenna? I thought we were friends too, but friends don't set each other up like this. Friends don't invite someone on their show just to blindside them with gotcha questions about stuff that has nothing to do with why they're there. The co-host, seemingly unaware of how things were spiraling, decided to push harder. Blake, I think you're being a little defensive here. These are legitimate questions. Questions people are asking. We're just giving you a place to answer them. Defensive. Blake suddenly stood up, his microphone pack catching on his chair. You want to see defensive? This is me being as polite as I can be while you sit there and basically call me irresponsible and out of touch. I've been nothing but respectful to you and your show, and this is what I get in return. The studio went quiet except for the sound of equipment and the distant noise of crew members moving around. Jenna looked horrified, clearly realizing that the interview had completely gone off track. Her co-host, however, seemed to think they were having an important moment. Blake, please sit down. Let's work through this together. I think there's a real chance here for you to connect with people who might feel left out by some of your past comments. That was apparently the last straw. Blake's face changed from frustrated to extremely angry in an instant, his hands clenched into fists. When he spoke, his voice was low and dangerous. Connect with people who feel left out, he repeated slowly, each word full of hatred. What alienates people? Having a talk show host who has never walked in their shoes, tell them what they should think and feel. You want to talk about being out of touch? Look in the mirror. Jenna was frantically signaling to her producers off camera, clearly desperate for someone to cut to a commercial, but the co-host was determined to push this confrontation to its limit. Blake, I think you're misunderstanding. We're not trying to tell anyone what to think. We're just asking you to take responsibility for the influence you have. There it is again, Blake said, his voice getting louder. Responsibility. You keep using that word like I owe you something. Like I owe everyone something just because I can sing and people like my music. Let me tell you something about responsibility. My responsibility is to my family, to my fans who actually care about my music, and to myself. It's not to sit here and be your political punching bag. The co-host leaned back slightly, maybe finally realizing they had gone too far, but it was too late to back down. I'm not trying to make you a punching bag, Blake. I'm just trying to have a real conversation. Real? Blake laughed bitterly. You think this is real? You think ambushing someone on live TV and then lecturing them about responsibility is real? This isn't journalism. This isn't even good TV. This is just you trying to feel important by tearing someone else down. Jenna made one last desperate attempt to save the situation. Blake, please, let's just take a breath here. We started off wrong, but we can change things. Your fans love you. We love having you on the show. But Blake was already reaching for his microphone pack. His movements were sharp and deliberate. You know what, Jenna? I used to think you were different. I thought you actually cared about your guests as people. It's not just as chances to score points or create drama for your ratings. Blake, that's not fair. Jenna protested, her voice shaking. Slightly. You know, that's not what this is about, isn't it? Blake challenged, his eyes blazing as he looked between Jenna and her co-host. Then explain to me why I walked in here thinking I was going to talk about music and instead got treated like I'm running for office. Explain to me why every question has been designed to make me look bad or put me on the defensive. The key host suddenly decided to interrupt again. Blake, I think you're being too sensitive here. These are questions any public figure should be ready for. Blake stopped what he was doing and looked at the co-host in complete disbelief. Too sensitive? Did you just call me too sensitive for not wanting to be ambushed on your show? Saying if you can't handle tough questions, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews, the co-host replied, obviously not realizing they had just lit the final fuse. The silence that followed was deafening. Blake stood perfectly still for a moment, and everyone in the studio seemed to be holding their breath. When he finally spoke, his voice was deadly. Calm. If I can't handle tough questions, he repeated slowly. Let me tell you something about handling tough questions. I've been doing interviews for over 20 years. I've been asked about everything from my divorces to my struggles with alcohol, to my political views, to my relationship with Gwen. I've answered them all honestly and respectfully because that's what professionals do. He took a step closer to the co-host, his voice rising with each word. But what you're doing isn't asking tough questions. What you're doing is trying to create a moment, trying to get a reaction, trying to make me lose my cool so you can have your viral clip. Well, congratulations, you got what you wanted, Blake. Please. Jenna tried once more, but he held up a hand to stop her. No, Jenna, I'm done. I came here in good faith to promote my music and maybe have some fun with people I thought were my friends. Instead, I get treated like I'm some kind of villain who needs to be taken down. He started walking toward the edge of the set, pulling his microphone pack off as he went. You want to know what's really irresponsible? It's using your platform to attack people instead of celebrating them. It's forgetting that the person sitting across from you is a human being with feelings, not just content for your show. The co-host somehow